Did you know that when parents are asked what they would do if they had 1 extra hour every day, most parents say they would use it for sleep? Are you exhausted trying to balance kids, work, and play? Do you want more purpose and less monotony in your life? Do you get overly irritated, frustrated, and angry with your children? If you've answered yes to some of these questions, then I'm glad you're here. I know how busy you are, and I'm not here to take your time. I'm here to help you take it back. Close your windows, open your mind, and let's kick some ass. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Kick-Ass Dad, Passionate Parenting in a Volatile World. I've got Michael Eisen here with me today. He's a passionate, inspirational speaker, author, and social entrepreneur. After positively transforming his own life at the age of 19 and overcoming challenges with stress, anxiety, and depression, he is now driven to share with young people the principles, strategies, and practices that empower him to start living a happier and healthier life. He's created the Youth Wellness Network, and he did this in order to provide more extensive support programs and resources for youth struggling with similar challenges. Michael provides a fresh, young, authentic voice to the field of wellness and is rapidly becoming a youth wellness expert. He co-authored Empowered Youth, A Father and Son's Journey to Conscious Living, and with his father, Jeffrey Eisen, and is now available in bookstores everywhere. Michael, I couldn't be more thrilled to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing well this morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us. Michael and I, for those listeners who've heard a lot of our episodes, we've been tracking each other for a while, so finally our spheres have collided.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy we could actually make this work.
Beautiful. Michael, so again, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And I'd love for you to kind of share with our guests your journey. I had the opportunity to hear about, where you came from, what you've been doing, what you've been through, and where you are now. I'd love for you to share that message with my listeners.
Sure, yeah. So for me, it really all began in my childhood. My mom used to say the first 2 years of my life was like the quiet before the storm, and as soon as I was able to walk and talk, it was like all hell broke loose in my household. I was what you would call, or at least what the self-help books at the time would call, a spirited child, which pretty much meant that I didn't listen to anybody and had to do things in my own way and had to live life to the beat of my own drum. And I happened to be brought up in a household that was very controlling and really trying to have me fit within, societal norms and put me in a box. And, I broke that box wide open. So I really didn't have a great relationship with my dad growing up. He was the my way or the highway kind of guy. And my mom, although she was my only source of love and nourishment, it did oftentimes feel like it was conditional because she wanted me to be on, normal or on my best behavior or always something different than I was. And I never really felt like I had the comfortable space to be accepted and appreciated for the uniqueness that I was. And as a result of that, I really started to question my own worthiness and value. And from a young age, started to develop low self-esteem. And happened to be bullied a lot in school as well. I was picked on for being sensitive and for being chunky and, believe it or not, being one of the only Jewish families in a town that was really not open to any kind of minority. And I just felt like no matter what it was, I couldn't get over the hump. I could never be accepted. I could never be appreciated and respected. And a lot of that carried through for the majority of high school, and I started to actually get to a point where I really questioned my own voice, and I held back from really communicating and expressing at all because I was so worried about the judgment and the ridicule that I was receiving from my peers and even in my home. And it ended up getting to a point where in grade 11, I actually just became so depressed that I disconnected from everything and everyone, and spent the majority of that year just hiding out and sliding under the radar and hoping somebody wouldn't notice me, and still showing up for school and still doing the bare minimum that I needed to do to get by to not draw any attention to myself. But on the inside was really going through some very deep and dark struggles. And really, what pulled me through that was this light at the end of the tunnel that I saw when I was coming upon graduating high school, going into my last year. And it was this belief system that I was taught from a young age, which was that, if you can get good grades, then you can get into a good university or college, and you can get a degree. And then once you get a degree, you can get a job. And then once you get a job, you can make lots of money. And then once you make lots of money, you can buy all the things that you think you need in life and think will bring you happiness, like the cars and the houses and the vacations and all the experiences. And, then you can find a partner, settle down, have some kids, watch your kids grow up, grow old, move out of the house, retire, and then be happy. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of people, because this seems to be a story that we are telling ourselves and unconsciously passing on to our next generation. And so it was the only thing that I knew. And so I actually worked extremely hard in that last year of high school, got the grades, but now it came at a cost to my physical health because of all the stress and anxiety that I was putting on myself to get those results. And but the only way I knew how to respond to that was just keep going, keep pushing. Got into university, kept doing the same thing, kept pushing, keep working really hard, and ultimately got to a point in my second year, after being so stressed and so anxious and depressed and you name it, everything just started spiraling and digging a deep hole, and I ended up having a breakdown. And the interesting thing about this at that time is that really there were very few people in my life that knew what I was going through. There was very few people around me that could even tell that I was in that state, because I really just wanted to put on a front to everybody around me to make me seem like I was normal, because I couldn't stand, standing out even more. So, a lot of the depression and a lot of the stress and anxiety would come out more in private quarters or with a few friends that I could really trust. And so I got into this breakdown state, and I had no idea how to get out of it. And the unique, part of the story is that my help actually showed up in the most unlikely of sources, and that was my dad. And as I mentioned, growing up, he was like that my way or the highway kind of guy who was like your type A workaholic, driven by money and power and profits, and really didn't have much of a relationship, was not really emotionally available for me, and was a great financial provider. But outside of that, there wasn't really much of a relationship. And he got to a point in his life where he reached the age of 50 and had accomplished everything that he had set out to business-wise, and business was his life at that point. And he wasn't happy. And, that was the missing ingredient in it all. And he thought that happiness would come at the end of the rainbow, but it never did. And so he started questioning everything that he was doing, and started uncovering a much deeper meaning to his life, and realized that happiness was something that came from within himself, not from his results and achievements, and just started himself on this own journey, and ended up actually turning his life around so much that he wanted to help other people do it, and he decided to become a life coach. And it was just at the time that he became a life coach that I was going through my breakdown, and I started to see him show up differently in my life. And the rest is history. I got inspired by seeing the change he made, and I actually signed up to become his first student. So I put aside all those differences that we had in our relationship, and I got a chance to turn my life around, and he got a chance to learn how to be a life coach.
That's an unbelievable story, Michael, and I really resonate with the narrative you talked about, that we all tell ourselves about where happiness comes from, and it's at the end of that rainbow after we make good grades, get into a good school, get the right house, get the right car, work at the rest of our lives, and then retire, and then we can be happy. That's insane.
It certainly is. The whole story is, but we can see from our point of view, because we've had some kind of a conscious shift in our life of how insane that is. But the reality is there's probably 95% of this world, if not even more than that, is living according to these limiting belief systems that is keeping us trapped in a life that is really stripping us from any possible capacity of joy and bliss and happiness that we actually can experience. It's like the irony in it all is that everything that we've been taught in this society, majority, is all counterintuitive. It's like we think that it's as without, so within, but the reality of it all is it's as within, so without. And this is something that, in order for us to really shift the overall internal culture that we live by, these belief systems need to be shifted.
Yeah, I often talk to my listeners about living your life from the inside out, not the outside in. It sounds like that's really what you're saying. That's a wonderful way to look at life that I've found, and that you've obviously found, is that we create happiness within, and then we can create greater results and be happy. I was listening to Sean Aker on TED Talks, and he was talking about how we push happiness over to the cognitive horizon, and we never give ourselves the opportunity to attain it. So you're doing some great work, Michael, and one of the things that I love about you is you're getting out there, you're taking action, you're talking to people, and you're helping people to change this personal narrative, this social narrative that we're all living in. And so how do you do it? How do you, whether it's, families are out there suffering emotionally, financially, spiritually, physically, how do you impact people's lives? How do you step in and help them create more positivity and purpose?
Well, so the how it usually works is I run an organization where I bring wellness programs into schools and youth organizations. So my predominant purpose is working with youth themselves. And so I will go into the schools and I will implement wellness programs and training programs that will actually train these students in various different modalities rooted in positive psychology and traces of emotional intelligence and letting go of old belief systems and stepping into their authentic selves. And there's so many different aspects to the curriculum that I teach. And then what happens is they become the wellness leaders in their school and then go out and actually inspire their peers. And it creates this massive ripple effect because it's actually coming from them. Now, all of that being said, I have noticed that if that support is not being given to the parents or the teachers at the same time, then it can start to lose its effectiveness at a certain level, because in many ways youth are still dependent on these adult role models in their lives. And so I could go into these schools and teach the kids and the teenagers as much as I know, and they can be so happy and thrilled with it, and they can go home and spend a weekend with their parents again, and it'll be completely watched. So it's really important that we create a united front. And so I do have a mentorship program that I run for parents as well. That's more of a one-on-one coaching program that really allows them to apply some of these conscious parenting techniques that my dad did to repair our relationship, and really do some of the inner work on themselves. And it's really a lot of the same stuff that I teach the kids, I teach the parents, so that we can all become on the same level. And then I also have a teacher training program as well. So the idea is to have everybody on the same front.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like how you're going at it from all angles, and I think that's so important. I can't imagine how busy you are and how much your time is necessary to get the job done, because like you said, 95% of people are out there still working on those old paradigms, and you're looking to shift that. Well, how do you talk to people who feel like this stuff is kind of hokey, who feel like positivity, it's one thing to be positive, but it's another thing to like be realistic?
Yeah, that's a good point. I really just tend to focus on results. So I find that results are the most concrete and tangible thing that we can focus on, and it's easy to. And another thing I just want to mention is that, like, I'm not all about like, well, let's just focus on the positive and forget about everything else, because that's really resisting a whole part of who we are. I'm about embracing all of who we are and recognizing that we have a choice where we spend our time mentally and physically and emotionally. So, for example, we are made up with equal amounts of positivity as we are negativity. We are made up with equal amounts of fear as we are with love and faith. But we have that choice, and it's always awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. So if you want to actually change something in your life, you have to be the one that makes that choice. But before any of us are able to make choices, we have to increase our internal awareness. We have to become aware of the thoughts that we're thinking, the words that we're speaking, the actions that we're taking. And that's what creates the empowerment, is the opportunity to make more conscious choices from that internal awareness. And it's that choice that will lead us to a place that will embrace all parts of ourselves. So really, the way that I talk, it's like I don't talk in hokey terms. I'm not out there. I'm not floaty. It's like I'm I'm rooted in human principles, and I'm also not a believer in just positivity, positivity, positivity. I'm a believer in, if you feel like crap, let it pass through you. Don't hold on to it. Don't judge it. Don't resist it. It will move through you naturally, and then you can choose to shift back to something that feels better. So I think that's really important. And then again, it's the results. It's like really taking a look at some of the impact that a lot of the programs that I've created have had in the schools on these young people's lives, and some of the amazing testimonies that I have from the parents in the mentorship program. People want results right now. We live in an immediate gratification oriented society. And so that's why I try to focus less on theory and more on practicality. And I give them the actual practices to do, because I always find once you put this into action, you're going to see some kind of a change. And once they see it and feel it, then it's like any doubt that they once had is completely out the window.
Right, right. Yeah, I love how you don't, and this is something, because a lot of people think that positive thinking and that sort of thing is about sticking your head in the sand, and it's about, you know, being idealistic and hippie, but it's really not. I mean, the idea is you create more positivity in your life by actually dealing with the emotions you already have. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. It's like, the reality is that we are here in this human experience to experience everything. And a big part of that experience is going to be some pain, and is going to be some sadness, and is going to be some anger and some frustration. And so it's not all about like forgetting our dark side. It's about embracing our dark side and then having that empowered choice to move through the darkness into the light.
Right, and being willing to face that pain. You're absolutely right, because, and this is one of the exercises that I share with folks, is when you're feeling really crappy about yourself, don't just forget about it or push it down, because that just allows it to linger. It's like, think about a kid, right? So you look at a kid has some pain, and they throw a fit, right? They just throw a tantrum, they get it all out, they're shaking, they're dancing, they're crazy, and then 5 seconds later, it's like a shiny object, and boom, they're like focused again, right? And well, so go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just want to say that the reason that is because emotion is actually in its natural state supposed to move through us in 90 seconds or less. And the kids have it right. It's like we need to model the way that we feel based on we see our kids doing it. What happens is the older we get, we think we need to intellectualize the feeling process. And the more that we get aligned into it, it's like we prevent ourselves from actually feeling. And listen, I am one of those people who does that. So it's not like I'm saying that I have figured it out how to not do it. I think more than I feel. I will admit that. But I've become very aware of what I am thinking at the least, so that I know that I can shift through some of the thoughts that aren't really supporting me and aren't really making me feel very good, and then shifting through to ones that do make me feel good. And as a result of that, I'm also a big proponent of, when you feel like crap, and try not to judge it and try not to think about it. And the more that you just allow it to move through you and shake it off, it will move through you a lot faster. But the more that you let it linger, the more that it's going to linger.
And it almost turns you into a kind of an Eeyore, right? So it's like ho-hum, you know, and you just kind of move through life like suppressing all of these negative emotions, and then so you have no energy to live life, and then you start thinking more negatively, and then it's like nothing works.
Yeah, exactly. It leads to that downward spiral.
That's awesome, Michael. I love I love how you talk about that, because I think that we do often try to intellectualize it. I'm the same way, man. Like, I've been focused for years on getting out of that kind of, you know, thinking my way to happiness, because we really, if we suppress, then we're, you know, it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So I've got my audience knows my big, hairy, audacious goal. My big, hairy, audacious goal is to create community centers for kids, where we focus on sustainable agriculture, where we focus on music, the arts, dance, cutting edge technology. We teach parenting classes. We do these things in the inner cities, and we help people kind of pull them out of poverty by taking ownership of their lives and using creativity and all this kind of great Renaissance type stuff to bring the power back to communities, impoverished communities. I know you're working on some huge. What do you have a big, hairy, audacious? I know you're doing a ton now, but do you have a big vision for yourself?
firstly, I want to comment that your vision is amazing. I am 100% in support of that, and that sounds really, really incredible. I want to commend you on that vision. I absolutely love and support that in its fullest. And I have a pretty similar vision, but it's not necessarily physical centers. It's more of a virtual land. And I want to change the education system. So I want to be able to expand the way that we are educating our kids at schools and also in our homes. And I want to expand it to focus on more of the holistic individual. I want to take more of a larger scope to the way that we are educating and also valuing our children. I was just having a conversation the other day about how our grading system is so linear. It's not really actually valuing the whole child and the whole individual. So that's my ultimate goal. I would like to have health and wellness built into the curriculum as a staple, and I would like to have a class built on life skills and social-emotional learning that every kid has to take in the school. And ultimately, my vision is to also create an online community where we can actually have preteens and teens interacting with each other in a safe environment, expressing themselves freely, having access to all this great positive content from different experts in different fields, and really providing that space for them to be all of who they want to be comfortably and confidently, and training them to become the leaders to then go out and train others.
That is huge. I love it. I love it. And I certainly will do anything I can to support you in that, because that is a beautiful vision. And that is exactly how I feel, about this show. It's more about, we're facilitators. Our job is not expertise. Our job is to bring people together and kind of help us uncover what it is that's going to make the next generation even better. So I really commend you on that, Michael. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll do anything I can to support you in that big vision. And I think that I recently did an interview with Alfie Kohn, and I don't know if you've heard of this gentleman, but he speaks your language, man, when it comes to grades, standardized testing, and I mean he makes no bones about it. He does not mess around. He says grades are the absolute wrong way to go. When you create competition instead of cooperation in schools, you are going down the path to separation and self-destruction. He said that if you are going to create a school system that works, it's got to be based around competition and creativity, and not about this linear type of corporate style top-down learning management.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with Congressman Tim Ryan yesterday, as I'm running my own summit right now for youth empowerment, and I was having an interview interviewing Congressman Tim Ryan, and he said that the idea of giving a trophy for somebody in Little League baseball is probably one of the worst things that we can do, because giving them a trophy for something that they haven't actually done to earn it, let alone giving a reward for something that they have earned, is getting them hooked on this idea that they need that validation for the results and the achievements that they are producing. And from a young age, they get hooked on this belief system that if they don't get the trophy, so to speak, and that trophy symbolizes so many things, then they aren't good enough. And that is rooting us in this belief system at such a young age. And that is the very belief system that our education system is built on. And it's really not catering to the whole child. It's catering to a small part of them. And it's like, fast forward like 15, 20 years when they graduate college or university, and it's like, how many students are actually studying something they actually want to study, and how many of them are actually getting a degree in something that they're going to go get a job in? It's like, I think I read something about like only like I think now a statistic was, and don't quote me on this because it's a very rough memory, but something like 35% of university graduates will actually get a job in that specific field that they got their degree in. And it's kind of like it's becoming to a point where we're so driven by this idea of the result that we're missing the most important thing, which is the learning and the education. I was coaching one of my teenage clients the other day, and she was so stressed out and doing 5 hours of homework every night with this idea that she had to be perfect and had to get these perfect grades, because it was the same story that I was telling myself when I was her age. And we actually had this conversation I asked her, what is the purpose of school? And it took her a little bit, and she said, well, I would say the purpose of school is to acquire knowledge. I said, good. So acquiring knowledge could be defined as education. Let's look at the definition of education. Nowhere in the definition of education does it say results. Does it say grades? But what's happened is we've lost the meaning of education as we've moved throughout the years, and we're no longer focusing on educating our children. We're focusing on remunerating our children. We're focused on getting them a grade to determine who they are. And so if we shift our focus on the purpose of school to learning and growth, and to just acquiring that knowledge, and really wisdom is just applied knowledge, then all of a sudden it becomes more of an absorption than a production. And that's but this is all rooted in the industrial age. I mean, this is all rooted in the industrial age, and this changed the whole. I mean, we're talking about massive shifts in our society that needs to happen. It's also rooted in the whole concept of the American dream, which is this idea that, like, you need the money and the house and the car and the things to be happy. I mean, these are deep-rooted ideologies that need to be shifted in order for us to really see major systemic change. But on a small scale level, if we can just bring it back to the purpose of school is learning and growth and education, the acquiring of knowledge, and nothing to do with the production of results, understanding that the results will come from the acquiring of knowledge, but the acquiring of knowledge will not come from the production of results. And that is the shift that we need to focus on.
Yeah, wow. Thank you, Michael, for that. That was well said. I did an interview. Well, I've got a contributor to our show. He's a very consistent contributor to our show. His name is J40, and he does the Greatness Zone. And his vision is that we all have unique talents, skills, and passions, and we come into this world with these things, and it's our job as parents to really uncover these things and then find ways for our kids to plug into the world and use those.